We start the day's other headlines with major restructuring at the Department of Health and Human Services, slashing its workforce by almost 25%. The agency says it will lay off 10,000 employees on top of another 10,000 leaving voluntarily through buyouts or early retirement. The vast majority of the job cuts will come from the FDA, the CDC, and the National Institutes of Health. The plan will also shut down entire agencies, including one that oversees the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said a, quote, painful period lies ahead, but he called the reduction in bureaucracy necessary.
We're going to eliminate an entire alphabet soup of departments and agencies while preserving their core functions. We're going to consolidate all of these departments and make them accountable to you, the American taxpayer, and the American patient.
Kennedy said some folded agencies would be merged into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America. HHS claims the changes would save taxpayers $1.8 billion a year. The White House has withdrawn New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's nomination to be ambassador to the United Nations, citing concerns about the slim margins Republicans have on Capitol Hill. Stefanik was seen as one of President Trump's least controversial picks, and her nomination even advanced out of committee before it stalled for months. It's a turnaround for the Congresswoman, who was expecting to be confirmed. She'd even launched a recent farewell tour in her district. Stefanik is now the fourth Trump administration nominee to have his or her name pulled. Attorney General Pam Bondi this morning signaled there is unlikely to be a criminal investigation into the sharing of military operational details by top Trump officials on a commercial messaging app. Bondi said the information shared over Signal about when the operation would start and what weaponry would be used was not classified.
First, it was sensitive information, not classified, and inadvertently released. And what we should be talking about is it was a very successful mission. Our world is now safer because of that mission. We're not going to comment any further on that.
Bondi went further to accuse Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden of mishandling classified information while in office. The Justice Department at the time opened investigations into those issues. Neither ultimately faced criminal charges. Meantime, late today, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to preserve all Signal messages that discussed attack plans in Yemen. Lawyers for a Tufts University international student who is currently in ICE custody were back in federal court today fighting for her release. 30-year-old Rumeysa Ozturk was taken by masked, plainclothes federal immigration agents Tuesday near her home in a Boston suburb. She's since been moved to an ICE detention center in Louisiana. The Department of Homeland Security says she was detained for supporting Hamas without providing evidence. Friends and colleagues of Ozturk say her only known activism was co-authoring an op-ed asking Tufts to divest from Israel. Turning to the war in Ukraine now and the European support on which it depends. Representatives from nearly 30 countries, plus NATO and the EU, gathered in a so-called coalition of the willing in Paris today. Many pledged to hold firm on Russian sanctions, and others pledged more aid to Ukraine, including France with a $2 billion defense package. But there was far from a coalition on another proposal to deploy European troops inside Ukraine as a deterrent to Moscow. Without consensus, the two countries leading the charge, that's France and the UK, signaled they'd be prepared to go it alone.
Aujourd'hui, ces forces de réassurance.
Today, these reassurance forces are a French-British proposition. It's desired by Ukraine, and it's also been agreed by several member states that have signaled their desire to join in. There's no unanimity on it today. That's known. But we don't need unanimity to do this.
All this as the conflict persists. Russian drones damaged homes and injured 24 people across cities in eastern Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine also accuse each other of continued strikes on energy infrastructure, breaking the limited ceasefire they agreed to just days ago. In Turkey, authorities deported a BBC reporter today as part of a crackdown on the press and anti-government demonstrations. Authorities pushed back more protesters with water cannons overnight. Almost 1,900 people have been detained by police since the demonstrations began last week. The protests, sparked by the jailing of one of President Erdogan's main political rivals, have been the largest in over a decade. In Lithuania, rescuers searched for 4 U.S. soldiers who went missing 2 days ago during a training exercise. The Army says the soldiers' armored vehicle was found submerged in a body of water at a military training ground near the Belarus border. Both U.S. and Lithuanian soldiers are combing the dense wetlands where the vehicle was found. As of yesterday, President Trump said he still hadn't been briefed on the missing soldiers, all from the 1st Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division.
Have you been briefed about the soldiers in Lithuania who are missing?
No, I haven't.
NATO had to clarify confusion caused by comments yesterday from Secretary General Mark Rutte after he suggested the soldiers had died. NATO says the search remains ongoing. And on Wall Street, despite some encouraging numbers about GDP last quarter, stocks took a bit of a tumble today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by more than 150 points, while the Nasdaq lost 0.5%. The S&P 500 also took a small loss on the day. Still to come on the NewsHour, we speak with one of the 2 Democrats the president fired from the agency that oversees big tech. A disinformation expert examines just how much of Project 2025 the Trump administration has implemented. And a new development tests whether car-free living is possible, even in sprawling cities like Phoenix.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein Studio at WETA in Washington, and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.